November 2023. 10 members of the Gambinos, one of Brooklyn's most notorious mafia families, were arrested by federal authorities in New York for their violent efforts to seize control of the city's garbage hauling and demolition industries. However, what truly shocked the public wasn't the severity of these men's crimes. That was almost as widely known as the formula of water, but rather the FBI's successful takedown of one of New York's most feared garbage truck racketeering rings. The defendants, which included mafiosos and associates, faced charges of racketeering conspiracy, extortion, witness retaliation, fraud, and embezzlement. Their crimes included a brutal hammer attack that left a worker hospitalized and a violent threat to slice a business owner in half with a knife. These dangerous men belonged to the Gambino crime family, one of the 5 families that dominated organized crime in New York City, and a major part of the nationwide criminal enterprise known as the American Mafia. When you hear Mafia, 2 things come to mind: criminal activity and some of the most violent crimes imaginable. These crimes, often executed by the world's deadliest men, initially began as secret operations and suddenly evolved to organized crimes in one of the most unlikely industries: garbage trucks. While Mafia-controlled garbage truck racketeering has gained notoriety in numerous places like Naples, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and New Jersey, none can compare to the scale of operations in New York. It's hard to fathom, why would the Mafia, a crime syndicate that considers itself elite and untouchable, take an interest in garbage hauling? To answer this, we need to look back to the 1990s, before garbage truck racketeering became a Mafia stronghold. As crazy as it sounds, only few organized crimes have proven as profitable or long-lasting as New York City's garbage collection industry under Mafia control. From humble beginnings in the early 20th century, garbage truck racketeering under the influence of the 5 families grew into a multi-million-dollar empire. It all started when New York's population exploded with waves of European immigrants, particularly from Italy. As the city grew, so did the challenge of managing its waste. To address this, the city turned to private companies for garbage collection. At the same time, Italian crime groups were establishing themselves in New York. The Mafia, realizing they could control this essential service and secure steady income, quickly saw an opportunity in waste management. Unlike the risky business of drug trafficking or gambling, garbage collection was a lucrative, low-profile operation tied to city contracts. By the 1930s, Mafia families had expanded their reach into industries where cash flowed and rivals could be pushed aside through violence, intimidation, or bribery. Garbage collection was the perfect target, an essential service deeply connected to city contracts that brought them the 2 things they deemed important: money and control. By the mid-20th century, the Mafia had gained a strong presence in the garbage collection industry. However, no single family held a monopoly. Several major families, including the Lucchese, Colombo, Bonanno, and Gambino families, all competed to dominate different parts of the industry. It was at this stage that the Gambino family decided to elbow out the competition from other Mafia families and independent businesses. Under the leadership of powerful bosses like Carlo Gambino and Paul Castellano, the Gambino family began to consolidate its control over New York's sanitation industry. The 1960s and the 1970s marked the height of Mafia control over the city's garbage collection. By then, the Gambino family had taken advantage of their close relationships with city officials, corrupt union leaders, and waste management businesses. This period also saw the Mafia adopting a more advanced approach to their operations and moving beyond simple extortion and intimidation tactics. The Gambino family in particular developed a racket known as the property rights system, in which waste management companies were forced to pay a license fee to the Mafia. Under this system, waste management companies were assigned exclusive territories by crime families and were forbidden to operate outside those areas. This not only eliminated competition, but also allowed the Gambino family and other Mafia families to control pricing by setting exorbitant rates for businesses that had no choice but to comply. After Carlo Gambino's death in the 1970s, Paul Castellano stepped into the spotlight as the head of the Gambino family. Under his leadership, the family transformed into a well-oiled machine. treating racketeering like a profitable business. Castellano saw a golden opportunity in the garbage industry and aimed for the Gambinos to dominate it. But everything changed in 1985 when Castellano was assassinated. John Gotti, a more flamboyant and aggressive leader, took over the family. Gotti continued to successfully push into waste management, but he faced mounting pressure from law enforcement, which was determined to dismantle the Mafia's grip on legitimate businesses. While Gotti rose to notoriety, the garbage racket remained one of the family's most discreet and steady sources of income. As the 1980s progressed, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies ramped up their investigations into organized crime, and the garbage industry became a prime focus. It was during this period that investigators uncovered a shocking truth. Mafia families, especially the Gambinos, were siphoning off millions of dollars each year from the sanitation business through racketeering and other illegal activities. The stakes were high, and the battle for control over this lucrative industry was just beginning. By the early 1990s, the FBI, in collaboration with the New York City Police Department and local prosecutors, launched Operation Wasteland. They had just one goal in mind: take down the Mafia's control of the sanitation industry. Using wiretaps, undercover operations, and testimonies from informants, authorities built a strong case against multiple Mafia families, including the Gambinos. In 1995, a significant blow was dealt when several high-ranking members of the Gambino crime family were indicted on racketeering charges related to their control of garbage collection. By the late 1990s, new regulations aimed at preventing organized crime from reclaiming influence over waste management in New York City were established. These included stricter oversight of contracts, background checks for company owners, and measures to root out corruptions in labor unions. Unfortunately, these efforts were not enough to stop the Mafia, which had grown to dangerous heights. By 2017, the Gambino family had profited immensely by extorting numerous individuals in New York City carting and demolition industries, using violence and intimidation, stealing from union employee benefit plans, and conspiring to rig bids for profitable demolition jobs. It wasn't until 2023, after 2 years of relentless investigation, that federal authorities finally closed in on the Gambino crime family, this time thanks to a recording from 2017. 16 members were charged in an international conspiracy to control New York City's trash hauling and demolition industries. Their methods were brutal, extorting unions and using violence to intimidate anyone who resisted. One reported case involved Gambino soldier Diego Tentillo, Robert Brooke, Sicilian mobsters Vito Rappa, and Francesco Beccari, and associate Kyle Twin Johnson. They targeted a New York carting business owner, threatening him with a bat, setting fire to his front porch, and vandalizing his trucks. They even assaulted one of his associates before cornering the owner and his father-in-law. Federal prosecutors revealed a wiretap where Rappa boasted to Beccari about forcing the father-in-law to act like the last samurai and threatening to slice the business owner in half if he didn't pay. Tentillo and Brooke demanded $40,000, and when the payment didn't come, Brooke assaulted one of the men on a busy Manhattan street. He beat the man so severely that his face was bloodied and his eye blackened. It was this brutal attack that led the victim to pay Tentillo $50,000 and offer $3.9 million in discounts for using a facility they owned. A search of Johnson's phone revealed that he had sent Tentillo 3 thumbs-up emojis after the assault. Investigators also found photos of the business owner's home, along with his name and address on Johnson's device. The 16-count indictment further named Gambino soldiers Angelo Grattalone, known as Fifi, James Lafort, and associate Salvatore Di Lorenzo, Joseph Lanni, and Vincent Minschiro, also known as Vinny Slick. Lanni's attorney declined to comment when asked by the New York Times, denying all charges, including uncharged acts mentioned in court filings. These included a violent incident involving a New Jersey couple outside their Toms River restaurant in September 2023. According to court documents, Lanni and Minschiro got into an argument with another patron before staff asked them to leave. While no charges were filed for this incident, authorities allege that Lanni threatened to burn down the restaurant He reportedly went to a nearby gas station, bought a fuel tank, but later returned it after Minskiro intervened. However, later that night, the restaurant's owners, a husband and wife, were assaulted at knife point in the parking lot after closing up for the night. On September 8, 2023, federal authorities arrested the 10 members of the Gambino family who had been involved in the crimes. While Italian police rounded up 6 more in a global sting operation, 9 of them pleaded not guilty. But only Salvatore Di Lorenzo was granted release on a $500,000 bond. Meanwhile, Lanny, Johnson, Tantillo, Grattalone were held without bail, with prosecutors arguing that they were too dangerous and could intimidate witnesses. Brooke, Rappa, Beccari, and Minskiro were granted release on a $1 million bond, though the court paused their release to allow the government time to appeal. James Laforte, already behind bars in Pennsylvania, will face his charges at a later date. As legal proceedings unfold and the dust settles, this case is set to reshape New York City's waste management and construction industries. While the future of the Mafia's influence remains uncertain, the events of September 8th mark a significant turning point in the fight against organized crime.